My name is Maya Ellison, and I'm 29 years old. And I still remember the exact second my whole life flipped upside down, sitting at my mother-in-law's dinner table on a regular Sunday evening in Nashville, watching my husband's hand hover over my bowl of soup like he was about to do something he could never take back. I wasn't supposed to see it. Trevor didn't know I was looking. His fingers opened just slightly, and something small and white dropped in, dissolving before I even had a chance to process what I just watched. He turned right back to his dad like nothing happened, picked up right where he left off talking about some work thing, easy as anything. My heart was pounding so hard I swear I thought the whole table could hear it. Diane, his mom, had always been sweet to me, honestly, from the very first Sunday dinner Trevor ever brought me to. She's the one who taught me her biscuit recipe, the one who called me her real daughter, not just her daughter-in-law. Just a few months back, she'd pulled me aside in this same kitchen and told me, "Honey, whatever happens with my son, you're always going to be family to me." I didn't know back then how much those words would end up mattering. And funny enough, it was around that same time Trevor sat me down at our kitchen table with a stack of papers, told me it was just smart planning, life insurance, $500,000, in case anything ever happened to either of us. I signed it without thinking twice. Honestly, didn't even read past the first page. I mean, why would I? You don't think your husband is capable of something like that, not until you watch his hand hover over your soup bowl. "Maya, honey, you okay?" Diane asked from across the table. "You look a little pale." I forced a smile. "Just tired," I said, and I looked down at my bowl. Chicken and rice soup, steam still rising off it. Whatever he'd dropped in, already gone, invisible, like it was never there at all. Trevor picked up his own spoon and ate like a man without a single care in the world. Went back for seconds, even complimented his mom's cooking. Then, for just a second, he glanced at me, and there was something cold behind his eyes, waiting. I picked up my spoon. My hand did not shake, not even a little. "Just letting it cool off," I said, real casual, buying myself time because my brain was screaming at me to think. I stood up. "Gonna use the bathroom real quick," I said, and I swear I saw his jaw tighten for just a split second before he caught himself. I locked that bathroom door and pulled my phone out with hands that would not stop shaking, and then I just stopped. I couldn't call the police, not yet. I didn't have proof, just what my own eyes saw and this feeling in my chest like ice water. I needed to be smarter than this. I stared at myself in that mirror and I said out loud, "Think, Maya, think." Because looking back now, Trevor had been off for weeks, staying up late, changing his passwords, taking phone calls out in the garage where he thought I couldn't hear. And stupid me, I told myself it was probably him planning something sweet for our anniversary. I wanted so bad to believe that. Now I knew better, deadass. Now I knew exactly what kind of man I married. When I walked back to that table, everybody was locked into normal conversation. Karen's kids and their school play, some soccer tournament coming up. My bowl sat right where I left it. Trevor looked at it, then at me, and I picked my spoon back up and waited for my moment. And it came fast. Diane got up to go check on her pie. Karen turned around to deal with her kids. And Trevor, for just 1 second, looked down at his phone. That's when I moved. I switched my bowl with Diane's, the one sitting untouched at her spot because she'd been too busy hosting to even take a bite. Same soup, same amount, nobody would ever notice. I set mine down in front of her seat and pulled hers in front of me, and my hands were steady even though my heart definitely was not, and for a split second I felt sick doing it to her of all people. The one person in that family who'd never once made me feel like an outsider. Trevor looked up right as I lifted my spoon and took a bite from what he thought was my bowl, and I watched him actually relax, watched him smile a little. "Good, right?" he said. And right then, Diane walked back in from the kitchen. "Let me finish my soup before that pie," she said, sitting back down, reaching for the bowl in front of her, the one I had put there. Trevor saw it a half second too late. "Mom, wait," he said, but she'd already taken a bite. "What, honey?" she asked, confused. He forced this smile that didn't reach his eyes at all. "Just don't fill up too much, save room for dessert," he said. She laughed it off and took another spoonful anyway, and Trevor's leg started bouncing under that table so hard I could feel it in my own chair. I kept eating slow and calm, like I didn't have a single thought in my head, but I checked my watch. 6:42. Diane finished about half her bowl, set her spoon down. 1 minute passed, then 2, and Trevor was watching her without trying to look like he was watching her, which, let me tell you, he was not as smooth as he thought. 3 minutes in, she reached for her water glass and her hand was trembling. "Is it warm in here to y'all?" she asked, and his dad shook his head, said it felt fine to him. 4 minutes, she pressed her hand flat against her chest. "I feel kind of strange," she said, and that's when Trevor shot up out of that chair faster than I'd ever seen him move in my life. 5 minutes in, she gripped the edge of the table. Her whole face went white as a sheet. Karen jumped up screaming. Trevor's dad knocked his chair over getting up. 6 minutes. She tried to stand, and her legs just gave out from under her, and Trevor caught her right before she hit the floor. "Somebody call 911, he was shouting, and I sat there completely still, not even looking at his mother. Honestly, I was looking straight at him. And that fear in his eyes, that panic all over his face, it wasn't grief, and it sure wasn't love. That was the look of a man watching his whole plan fall apart right in front of him. The ambulance got there in 12 minutes flat. They loaded Diane onto a stretcher, hooked her up to an IV right there in the living room, kept asking what she'd eaten, if she had allergies, what medications she was on. Trevor rode with her. His dad followed right behind in his own car. Karen stayed back with the kids, just sobbing into her hands. "I don't understand," she kept saying. "She was fine an hour ago, Maya. She was totally fine." I put my arm around her, told her she was going to be okay, and then I asked her to take the kids upstairs, said I'd handle the kitchen. The second she was gone, I moved. I found plastic bags under the sink, a pair of gloves in one of the drawers. I poured what was left of the soup from Diane's bowl into a container and sealed it up, bagged the bowl itself, the spoon, did the exact same thing with my original bowl, and hid all of it in my purse before anybody could ask questions. Then I called somebody I hadn't talked to in almost 2 years, my brother Josh, who works in a medical lab up in Memphis. "Maya," he answered, sounding shocked to even hear from me. "I need your help right now," I said. "Don't ask me anything yet. Just trust me." He was at that house in under 30 minutes. I met him outside on the porch, handed him the bags, kept my voice as steady as I could manage. "Test everything you can find on this," I told him. "Toxicology, chemical breakdown, all of it." He looked at the bags, then at me, and go, "Maya, what happened here?" 24 hours, I said, please, and he left without another word. I went back inside and cleaned that kitchen top to bottom until it looked like any other Sunday. Trevor didn't get home until 3 in the morning, and honestly, he looked wrecked, shaking, exhausted. He sat down next to me on the couch and put his head in his hands. "They think it might be her heart," he said. "They're keeping her overnight for observation." I watched him close, and I'm not gonna lie, he was good, like really good. If I hadn't seen what I saw with my own eyes, I would have believed every single word out of his mouth. "I need to tell you something," he said, and my whole chest went tight. "Been under a lot of stress lately, work stuff, money stuff," he said. "Didn't want to worry you with it?" He squeezed my hand. "Made some bad investments. We're in debt, Maya, like real debt, close to 200 grand. I kept my face completely still. "How much exactly?" "We'll figure it out together," he said, real soft, like he actually meant it. Seeing my mom like that tonight, it just made me realize life's too short, you know. He pulled me into a hug and I let him, and over his shoulder I just stared at the wall, because I already knew what he wasn't saying out loud. 200,000 in debt, and that insurance policy he'd talked me into 6 months back, the one Diane had actually warned me about once, low-key, without even realizing what she was warning me about. She'd said, "Honey, just make sure you always know what you're signing. My late husband's brother got into some real trouble that way." I hadn't thought much of it at the time. Now those words wouldn't leave my head. $500,000. And I finally understood what that policy really was. He wasn't trying to fix his debt. He was trying to collect on it. Next morning, Trevor headed to the hospital early, and the second his car pulled out of the driveway, I went straight into his office, through his files, his laptop, everything. Found the insurance policy, read every line of that fine print, accidental death clause, double payout, $1 million. I found bank statements showing gambling debts and emails, honestly straight-up threats from people he clearly owed serious money to. My phone rang right in the middle of it. "Josh, got some preliminary results," he said. "And Maya," he paused for a second, "there's digitalis in that soup, a real high concentration." My blood went cold. "What does that even do?" I asked. "It's a heart medication," he said. "In large doses it causes cardiac arrest, and the level I'm seeing here was not an accident. Somebody put that in there on purpose. This could have killed somebody." I closed my eyes. "Send me the full report," I said. "Maya," he said, "you need to go to the police." "I will," I said. "Soon. But I needed one more thing first. I needed him to lead me straight to where it came from." Trevor texted me about an hour later, saying his mom was getting discharged that afternoon. Could I swing by and pick up her prescriptions? I stared at that message, and it clicked immediately. He wanted me to go get her medications refilled. I understood exactly what that meant. That's exactly where he'd gotten the digitalis in the first place. Diane had a heart condition, and he'd been stealing her pills this whole time, crushing them down, mixing them into my food, and now he needed me to unknowingly restock his supply. I picked up the prescriptions and brought them by the house. Diane was resting on the couch, still pale but alive, thank God, and the second she saw me, she reached for my hand and said, "You didn't have to do all this for me, sweetheart, but I'm so glad you did." That almost broke me right there, knowing what I knew, knowing what he'd actually done to her, using the very medicine that kept her alive. Trevor came out from the kitchen. "Thanks, honey," he said, taking the bag from me, and for just 1 second our eyes met and something passed between us. "I'll go put these away," he said, heading upstairs. I waited about 30 seconds, then followed him quiet as I could. The medicine cabinet was in the upstairs bathroom, and I stood right outside in the hallway just listening. I could hear bottles being moved around, counted out, and then a different sound, this grinding, small and hard, over and over. He was already making more. I pulled my phone out and hit record, and then I pushed that door open. Trevor spun around fast, and there in his hand was a mortar and pestle, white powder inside, his mom's pills scattered all over the counter like he hadn't even bothered hiding it well. We just stared at each other for a second. "What are you doing?" I asked, keeping my voice flat. "Organizing her medications," he said, calm as anything. "Some of them are hard for her to swallow, so I crush them up." "That's not what you're doing," I said, and something in his face just shifted right then, all the warmth drained right out of it. "I know what you did," he said quiet. "You switched the bowls. You put digitalis in my soup," I said, "but I switched it, and your mother ate it instead. The same woman who's never once treated me like anything less than her own daughter." "I had it tested, Trevor. The report shows lethal levels, same exact medication you're standing over right now." He went completely still. "I have the soup," I told him. "I have the lab results. I have this recording right now, and I held my phone up so he could see it. And I have your insurance paperwork, your bank statements, every threat from those loan sharks, all of it." He looked at my phone, then at me, and his voice dropped low. "Smarter than I thought," he said. "Not smart enough to marry you, though." He took a step toward me. "That recording's just audio. Could be anybody, could be faked. And that soup, you took that from a crime scene? Any decent lawyer tears that apart in 5 minutes." And honestly, he wasn't wrong, and he knew that I knew it too. "But your mother's hospital records are going to show digitalis poisoning," I said. "And when they test these bottles right here, they're going to find your fingerprints all over them." His whole face hardened up. "Then I guess I gotta fix this before that happens," he said. And he moved fast, grabbed my wrist, and twisted it hard enough that my phone hit the floor. He shoved me back against the wall, and his hands went straight for my throat. "You should have just eaten the soup," he said through his teeth, and black spots started creeping in around the edges of my vision. Then a voice cut through from the doorway. "Trevor, what in the hell are you doing?" His mom. His hands went slack instantly, and I gasped for air. Diane stood there in the doorway staring at him, at the pills, at my phone still recording face up on the floor, and her whole face went white. "I heard everything," she whispered. "You tried to kill her, your own wife, the girl I've called my daughter for 3 years, "Mom, please," he started, and she cut him off, her voice breaking. "You poisoned me instead. It was me." "It was an accident," he said, and she just screamed at him, "Get out of my house right now, and don't you ever call me your mother again." His dad appeared behind her in the hallway, and he'd clearly heard every single word, too. Trevor looked around at all of us, completely cornered, and then he just bolted, ran down those stairs, and straight out the front door, gone. His dad called the police right then and there. I picked my phone up off the floor, still recording the whole time, and I knew right then I had everything I needed. Police showed up in 8 minutes, and I handed them the recording, the soup samples, Josh's lab results, the insurance documents, all of it laid out for them. They caught Trevor about 3 hours later trying to cross the state line. He got arrested on the spot, charged with 2 counts of attempted murder. That trial dragged on for 5 months. His lawyer tried calling me paranoid on the stand, said I staged the whole thing, said I poisoned his own mother just to frame him for it. But the evidence was airtight, honestly. The digitalis in that soup matched his mom's prescription exact. His fingerprints were all over that mortar and pestle, and that recording caught every single word out of his mouth. And when they pulled my own medical records from the past 6 months, they found traces of digitalis already sitting in my system. He'd been poisoning me slow for months. That Sunday dinner was supposed to be the final dose. Jury only took 2 hours to come back, guilty on every count, 25 to life. I sat right there in that courtroom and watched them take him away in cuffs. He looked at me one time before they walked him out, no remorse at all in his eyes, just this cold fury that I'd outsmarted him at his own game. On the stand during sentencing, the judge asked Diane if she wanted to speak, and she stood up in front of that whole courtroom and said the only family she needed left in that room was standing right there, and she looked straight at me when she said it. Diane found me after, pulled me into a hug, and said, "I'm so sorry. I should have seen what he was, honey." I told her, "You couldn't have known that, and honestly, thank you for saving my life." She just shook her head and said, "No, you saved mine, and you're still my daughter, no matter what his last name is." That was about a year ago now. I'm living in Portland these days, new job, new apartment, new everything. I don't trust Easy anymore, and I'm not sure I ever will again, but I'm alive, and some nights I still think back to that dinner table, to that exact second I saw his hand move over my bowl, and that split-second decision to stay quiet instead of losing it right there in front of everybody. Some people probably think I should have called the cops the moment I saw it. Maybe they're right, but I needed proof, and switching 2 bowls of soup is what got it for me. That's what kept me breathing. Not luck, not some miracle. Just one bowl moved 6 inches to the left.